I guess you can call this the first episode, sort of, kind of, but it's the NBA Draft Junkies podcast with your host, me, James Barlowe, and it looks a little differently because it's just me, and it's going to be me for a while, but here I am ready for the 2026 NBA Draft. Appreciate everybody for sticking with me and my brother. Apologize for the wait, but we kind of had a big thing going on. My brother signed with the Dallas Mavericks. He's an international scout, so you won't be able to see him, but you will get to see me. I am Pusha T, and he is No Malice. So when you see him, you see me. When you see me, you see him. It's still NBA Draft Junkies. I will be taking over for him on the NBA Big Board Substack. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do. And if you're not already subscribed to the NBA Draft Junkies podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts in audio format, please do. I'm expecting to have a fun season. We got a lot of quality talent. I'm excited, ready to go on this journey. In today's podcast, I'm going to give you my top 14 of my preseason big board. I'm not using the Tankathon sim. I'm just going to give you picks 1 through 14, guys who I think will be lottery picks as of today. I expect to see movement, possibly from the 4th slot on. Again, it's early October. Teams are just now holding their Midnight Madness. I remember Midnight Madness used to be a really big thing when I was younger. We got secret scrimmages going on. So, again, it is really early. I fully expect to see movement. But with all that being said, let's get started. The number one player on my 2026 big board happens to be Darryn Peterson, shooting guard at Kansas. And now, if this is your first time seeing this, I am extremely high on Darryn Peterson. I think Darryn Peterson might be the best guard prospect that we've had in the past 15 to 20 years. I think he's really, really that good. I think he's superstar talent, and I think that he is going to lead Kansas. I think that he's really one of the main reasons of you see this resurgence of guys, signing with Kansas, in particular in the 2027 NBA draft class, guys that are graduating in 2026. But Darryn Peterson, again, 6'5", superstar talent, two-way, great athlete, energy, motor, very good shooter, very advanced scorer for his age. He's the good. If you compare him to Anthony Edwards at the same stage in their career now, granted Anthony Edwards was young for his class. I believe his birthday is in the summer, and Darryn Peterson is in January. But I do think that Darryn Peterson is just a little further ahead as far as like the playmaking and the jump shot goes. And maybe he's probably just a half step below as far as the athleticism in comparison to Anthony Edwards. But I think Darryn Peterson is the goods. He splits pick and rolls. He averaged 3.3 stocks on the Adidas circuit last year. Ultimate scorer, ultimate competitor, 3-level scorer, post-game, left-hand floaters. He will dunk on you. He creates dunks in the half court. I just think he has a superstar level talent. He is at least in position to have the same statistical season that like Markelle Fultz had at Washington. Bill Self basically gave him the blessing and said that, hey, if we're going to be a good team, it's because Darryn Peterson is a great player. So I'm very excited to see the season unfold for Darryn Peterson. I think he's the number one player in his class. You can argue AJ Dybantsa, you can argue Cameron Boozer, but this is my podcast, so you can argue me in the comments. That's fine too. But if I were selecting number one, regardless of where the ping pong balls fall, I'm going to go with Darryn. Concerns that I do have about Darryn Peterson, again, I do think he is the best prospect in this class. I do think he is the best guard prospect that we've probably seen in the past 15 to 20 years. But I will say the playmaking, I think it's good, and it'll be interesting to see how Kansas uses him. Will they put him in more of a playmaking role where he play a lot more off the ball? Either way, I believe he's going to be fine. There is a level that he can reach as a playmaker, and also just his volume of three-point shots. I guess, some of us call it in the draft community, his three-point rate. He can become mid-range heavy. I'm all for mid-range jumpers, but you got to diversify, and I feel like sometimes, Darryn Peterson can lock in on the mid-range jumpers. Again, it's okay. I'm all for it. I'm not the person that's telling you to get threes and dunk, especially for your superstar level talent players. But ultimately, he will need to up his three-point rate. Coming in at the number 2 slot on my big board for the 2026 NBA Draft is BYU's AJ Dybantsa. Now, AJ Dybantsa has been the number 1 player in his class. Well, I guess if you follow 24/7, shout out to 24/7. They have Nate Ament number 1, but AJ Dybantsa has been the number 1 player consensus in his class for some time. 6'9", small forward from BYU by way of Boston, Oakland. AJ is worldwide. I'm taking AJ Dybantsa, number 2 overall. I do believe that he is the number 2 prospect in this class based on his upside. I mentioned 6'9", small forward, very good in isolation, very athletic, elevation on his jump shot. He has a pretty good handle, decent in pick and roll. I think that his best feature right now, or at least his best part of his game, isn't necessarily the isolation score, which though it is very good, I do think he is really, really good in transition, especially when he commits to rebounding. Covers the floor, not necessarily Giannis-like, but if he's a step below Giannis as far as just long strides and being able to put pressure on the rim in transition, that unlocks something very special in his game. Also, this past spring at the McDonald's All-American game, I got to see him in person in Brooklyn, and the thing that I came away impressed with is that he played on a stacked team. I believe he played with Darryn Peterson. I believe he played with Nate Ament, and he was committed to screening and rolling. So, like, unlocking that shows his, like, level of unselfishness, and if he's able to, play possibly 3 positions, 2, 3, and 4, he has a very high ceiling. The comparisons to Tracy McGrady are very warranted if you consider the size, the handle, just even the style of play. AJ Dybantsa is going to make a team very good. BYU has an opportunity to be a very good team this season, not only because of him, but he just put himself in position to win games, to build upon his draft stock, and potentially, contend for the number 1 pick. As far as my concerns with AJ, he can sometimes, the ball does kind of stop at times, and as physically gifted as he is, I do think he has a tendency to kind of just float on defense. He's 6'9", he's got long arms. I wish his motor ran better on the defense end, but he does have all the potential to be a very good defender. It's just a matter of him locking in. Another concern that I have with Dybantsa is, again, sometimes he's really isolation heavy, and in those isolation heavy moments, he can sometimes just bail defenders out, when he relies on just elevating and pulling up on a jump shot. He does draw a lot of fouls in transition, but he just has the ability to get to the line probably more, especially in isolation. So it'll be interesting to see how he builds upon that. But like I said before, if you're picking 1, if you're picking 2, if you're picking 3, you're likely getting a franchise player. But it just so happens to be that I think AJ Dybantsa is the number 2 best prospect in this particular draft. Coming up at number 3 is Duke's Cameron Boozer. Boozer is a highly decorated 4/5, won at the high school level. He won on the AAU level. He's just a winner, and he's going to Duke following the footsteps of his father. He's taking his twin brother with him, Caden Boozer. I fully expect Cameron Boozer to be in the talk for National Player of the Year. He's that good. We're talking about a 6'9", 6'10" power forward who has very few flaws in this game. He can shoot, he can pass, he can rebound, he puts the ball on the ground pretty well, and he's just the ultimate winner. Plays the right way, does the things the right way, quiet. He's not as loud as far as, and I'm not saying Darryn Peterson and AJ Dybantsa are loud players, but you're not going to get the highlight dunks or the highlight reels that those two offer, but Cameron Boozer is going to be steady. Concerns that I do have about Boozer, I think he's a good athlete. I don't think he's a great athlete, and maybe that kind of hinders his defensive upside, at least as far as protecting the rim. Now, I do think that he does move like Al Horford. Al Horford may not block the most shots, but Al Horford does have the ability to switch on the perimeter. Cameron Boozer guarded AJ Dybantsa in the EYBL, and he did as good of a job as you possibly could do on AJ Dybantsa, who led the EYBL in scoring last summer. So I think Cameron Boozer, while you may not get the shot blocking or stock numbers that you would like to see from your 4 or 5, I do think he is going to be able to defend. He's going to be able to be switchable. He just won't have the super high block rate, but at the same time, like, he's going to clean the glass. Very high on him, very talented. Again, picks 1 through 3, you can switch him up either way. I don't necessarily think that there is anybody who is going to be able to challenge these three guys for those three spots. Either way, this class offers a lot of star power at the top. So 1 through 3 are going to get a very good player. Coming in at number 4 on my preseason big board is Louisville's Mikel Brown Jr. Mikel Brown Jr., point guard, well-traveled at the high school circuit. He finished his last year at DME Academy, where he basically decided that he was going to be a big-time scorer. Mikel Brown Jr. can do both. I think he can pass. I think he can score. I think he can shoot. I think he can do whatever the team needs him to do. Mikel Brown probably will measure in at about 6'4", 6'5". He has all the things that you want in your modern point guard as far as tall, playmaker, create his own shot. He has the talent to be a franchise point guard. I don't necessarily think that he'll have an opportunity to be in the top 3 unless something goes, terribly wrong. And that's not necessarily a knock on Mikel Brown. He's at Louisville. Louisville brought in, I believe, 3 other guards, and they're going to be a top 20 team. I just don't necessarily think that he'll get the full opportunity, at least like the same workload as a Darryn Peterson or a Dybantsa, or even have the same opportunity to affect the game as a Cameron Boozer. And it's not necessarily based on your college stats. I just think that his team won't need him to do as much, whereas those guys may need them to do more as far as them being able to win. But I do see Mikel Brown Jr. having games where he'll have a 20-point game or have multiple double-digit assist games, because I do think he is that good. Concerns about Mikel Brown Jr. He has put on strength, but strength ultimately is going to be, a very determining factor in his success level. Strength is going to be very key in his development. He has gained some weight, and I know he's more of a late bloomer. He had a late growth spurt. Matter of fact, since we're here talking about Mikel Brown Jr., you should check out an interview that my brother had with Mikel Brown Jr. Like I said, ton of juice off the dribble, very good pace, very good playmaker, draws fouls at a high rate. Issues that I have with Mikel Brown, while I do think he has some of the same qualities that Tyrese Halliburton has, I do think he does turn the ball over a lot. Maybe that just has to do with the role that he's had to play, the different roles that he's had to play over the past few years, and maybe that number does come down at Louisville, as he won't have to force as many plays, but he does turn the ball over a lot, and also he's at 54% at the rim. And, point guards, especially in today's NBA, you have to be able to finish at the rim. I do think he's going to be fine. Like I said, he's growing into his athleticism. He's trying to dunk on people now. I think he's a really good player. And, again, if you're picking at number 4, I think that you have your point guard of the future in Mikel Brown Jr. Coming in at number 5 on my way too early preseason big board is Tennessee's Nate Ament. Now, Nate Ament finished out, according to 24/7, as the number 1 player in his class. I can't really co-sign that, but everybody has their own opinion. I think Nate Ament has high-level starter talent, 6'9", very good shooter. He has a decent handle for somebody his size. Projects to be somebody that you plug in, and he's going to be able to stretch the floor and attack closeouts. And I think he has the ability to be a very, very good starter in the NBA. I know that we as draft people or just fans of basketball, we're looking for the next Kevin Durant, and I don't think he's the next Kevin Durant. And that's not a slight at Nate Ament, because Kevin Durant is one of one. Kevin Durant is 37 years old, and he's likely to average 25. And we're probably never going to see anything like that again. So I don't necessarily think that it's fair to compare Nate Ament to him. But at the same time, Nate Ament does project to be a really good basketball player. Concerns, I do think he does need to put on weight. Like most of these guys, as we were talking about 18, 19-year-olds, there's only a handful of 18, 19-year-olds in this draft who have their grown man body, and Nate Ament just happens to be not one of those guys. Even outside of him putting on the strength, and the reasons why I think that he is more so of a 4 than a 3. Again, another shameless plug. I wrote an article in NBA Big Board Substack about Nate Ament, and I think he struggles to turn the corner to get to the rim. Some of that is strength. Some of that is flexibility, quickness, however you want to slice it. He just doesn't get to the rim very often. When he does get to the rim, he shot 41% at the rim on the Adidas circuit in his last AAU season. And I have him down for only 1 dunk in the half court, and it was assisted. Again, no shame, because in today's NBA, you want your 4 men to be able to stretch the floor if they're not a rim protector, bruiser, great athlete. Either he's going to be fine at the next level. I just have concerns about him putting the ball on the floor against smaller guys. I think he'll be able to put the ball on the floor because he can shoot, he can attack and close out. But smaller guys are going to be able to basically neutralize him just because he doesn't have like that flexibility or strength to get by. Now, he does have very good footwork, and he does use his 6'9", 6'10", frame to elevate over guys. I just think that he's better off playing the 4. He may be more of a Keegan Murray type than the Kevin Durant or even a Brandon Miller or even a Zachary Risache. And there's no shame in it because Keegan Murray is going to play 10 years plus. So that is where I have Nate Ament. I think he's going to have a good season, but just not buying the Kevin Durant comparison. And again, nobody's Kevin Durant. Coming in at number 6 on my 2026 preseason big board is Kentucky's Jayden Quaintance. Jayden Quaintance played last year at Arizona State, I believe at 17 years old. He, unlike Nate Ament, again, no disrespect to the Ament family, please. I'm just talking my stuff. But Jayden Quaintance has an NBA body. He came in as a grown man at 17. He's chiseled. He looks like the thing from Fantastic Four. Very good rebounder. He has Defensive Player of the Year at the NBA level potential. Block shots, moves his feet on the perimeter. He rips guys on the perimeter. He's that good of a defender, and he's still young. Concerns about Quaintance. He offers little to nothing on as far as spacing the floor, and that's okay. I expect him to be a rim runner. I expect him to be somebody that you're going to see in the short roll. He does show flashes as a potential passer, those backdoor cuts. Those things are good. I just don't see him spacing the floor at all, and that's okay. He's also a poor foul shooter. So Kentucky does have their ways with, improving guys' shooting touch. I don't expect them to allow him to shoot because it's just not necessary. Like, that's just icing on the cake because he just projects to be that good of a defender. But again, the concerns are the touch isn't there. Sometimes he does get into trouble in traffic as far as like in short rolls. He does handle the ball some, but he just doesn't have a lot of creativity. And maybe that's just asking him to do more than what he should be doing. But realistically, the biggest concern, I know there's the free throw shooting. I know you're not going to space the floor, and that's okay. You don't necessarily need your 5 men to do that, especially when those 5 men have Defensive Player of the Year potential. I mean, obviously, Wemby's going to win it as long as he plays. But Quaintance is coming off an ACL injury. ACL injuries it's not the Bernard King ACL when your knee's, on the other side of your leg. But it'll just be interesting to see what he looks like when he does come back. They say that he's ahead of schedule. It'll be interesting to see how much they play him. But I think if the ACL checks out and the knees check out and he's healthy, he's easily a top 10 pick. I could also see him jump into 5 or even 4. He's just that good of a defender. That is Jayden Quaintance, center from Kentucky.
Athlete AI is the story of the athlete. And every athlete deserves to have the story told. Under the lights and in the spotlight. This is your moment, your room. Download, capture, create, share. Athlete AI. Your name is Trent.
Coming in at number 7 on my 2026 preseason big board is Baylor's Tounde. Let me make sure I get this right. Baylor didn't do me any favors with the phonetics on the website. Tounde Yessefou from Baylor by way of California. I believe Tounde is the all-time leader in scoring in California high school history. That is an amazing feat in itself. Tounde Yessefou, I think he's about 6'5". I do think he has a small forward, borderline power forward skill set. I'm not hating on him, but at the high school level, I felt like he just out-athleted everybody. And, you work with what you work with. But I don't necessarily think he's the most... His offensive game isn't as polished as I want it to be, but he does project to have very good upside on the defensive end. Strong. He's like the Anthony Edwards doppelganger, store brand Anthony Edwards. He just didn't get those guard skills that Anthony Edwards got. But Tounde will be able to defend at a very high level. Again, speaking of the McDonald's All-American game, he was in the passing lanes like crazy. It looked like every time I looked up, it was either him or Darryn Peterson forcing a steal. He uses his strength well. He's built like a tank. He should be able to hang his hat, on the defensive end. Jump shot is a work in progress. And even then, at the in the AAU level, he played for, I believe, Team Why Not. He played a lot of like power forward. So I think he needs to sharpen his guard skills. It's just that at Baylor, they're gonna ask you to do what they need you to do, and they have a history of doing that. I mean, BJ Edgecombe said that maybe it wasn't Baylor, but he just didn't enjoy playing college basketball because of the spacing. So I think Tounde could be the 7th pick in this draft. I think he has that talent. Again, it's just going to come down to will the skills match up, or how much will he be able to improve on his just guard skill set, perimeter skill set, to be a slashing 3-man. I don't necessarily think he is a 2. Because I don't think the handle is the strongest, but he's athletic. He plays hard. He has a motor. Maybe he ends up being like a Lou Dort. Lou Dort in a redraft is definitely a top 10 pick. So I think that's what Tounde Yessefou ends up becoming. Coming in at number 8 on my 2026 preseason big board is North Carolina's Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson, defensive upside through the roof, 3.8 stocks per game on the Nike EYBL circuit. He's a combo forward. I think he can put the ball on the ground some, maybe not a lot. He does rebound out of position. Very good motor, very unselfish player, but he's likely a play finisher. The jump shot, it's a bit shaky, and the thing is, I don't know how it's necessarily going to work at Carolina. Again, it's early. I could be completely wrong, but maybe they don't showcase all of his potential just as far as like that whole roster makeup. But I do think he is a lottery pick. Like I mentioned before, he offers so much on the defense end. Maybe he's a Tari Eason type player. But Caleb Wilson, I think he's going to be a very good player. I don't necessarily think that his production at North Carolina is going to be indicative of the player that he is. I mean, look at Drake Powell. Drake Powell struggled to find his role, and he ended up being the 22nd pick in the 2025 NBA draft. So I think Caleb Wilson is going to be fine. Like I said, the defense upside is going to be good, and if he just shows enough flashes, knocks down a few jumpers, I think he has an opportunity to be a top 10 pick. Maybe he goes a little higher than where I have him at 8th, but he's somebody that I don't expect to be back next year because he's an NBA level talent. Coming in at number 9 on my preseason big board for the 2026 draft is Virginia Tech's Neokalas Avadals. Avadals tested last year. I thought he played well. I saw him in person at the Combine. He showed you he can put the ball on the ground, play off the ball, play on the ball, make shots, create his own shot. For whatever reason, he decided to play college basketball, and he chose Virginia Tech. I think that's a good spot for him. He's going to have every opportunity to showcase his playmaking ability. I think that he is every bit of the prospect that Jaeger Demon is, and also Kasparas Yakachonis, who both ended up going in the first round last year. So by going to Virginia Tech, Avadals gets a chance to play in front of scouts, without having to go overseas. I think that he's a playmaking forward, playmaking wing, even though he will play point guard at Virginia Tech. But I do think long term, I think he projects to be somebody who, is a ball handler, but he has all the talent in the world. 6'7", decent quickness for his size. Doesn't have a lot of lift, especially in traffic, and it's evidenced by his just overall inefficiency at the rim. I believe he shot 42% at the under-19s playing for Greece. But he can get better at the rim. I think he probably needs to study some of the Joe Johnson tape, some of those bigger guys who have a good handle, who just don't have enough turbo to get all the way or enough lift to finish at the level of efficiency that you want. So he's going to have to shoot a lot of floaters. But he did put himself in position to be very successful at Virginia Tech. Got to prove that the jump shot is consistent, but I feel like he's going to have a very good year, be all ACC, and find himself in the lottery. Coming in at number 10 on my preseason 2026 big board is Chris Cenac from Houston. Now, Chris Cenac has a lot of talent. The eye test you're gonna look at him and you're gonna see shades of, dare I say, Anthony Davis. Now, he's not that level of prospect by any means, because if he was, he wouldn't be the 10th pick. The problem with Chris Cenac is that consistency is not there, and I still think that he is a ways away from being very productive. He has flashes, like I said. he'll have a 20-point game. He'll follow it with a 6-point game. He's just not consistent right now. I believe his feel for the game does need to improve. But when you look at him, 6'10", 6'11", very good athlete. Jump shot looks good. He shot 37% on jump shots at the high school level last year. But the problem is he just wasn't efficient at the rim. Sometimes he can get lost. Those 20-point games sometimes are followed by 6-point games. I got to see him play last year at the All-Star game. And again, it's just one game. You can't necessarily judge a player based on one game. But in that game against Montverde, he was just out there. And he looked lost. But at the same time, you'll see the flashes. So I believe that regardless of what happens at Houston this season, he won't be at Houston next year, whether it's in the draft or in the portal. I just think he's just one of those guys that is going to take some time for it to work out for him. And I think also that a team drafting him should probably understand that he is more of a long-term project. But again, he has all the talent in the world. I think he has top 5 talent. He's just still trying to figure things out. So that's Chris Cenac, 6'10", 6'11", power forward / center, University of Houston. Coming in at 11 on my preseason big board is Arizona's freshman forward, Koa Peat. Now, Koa Peat played extremely well, especially and particularly on the defense end at the under-19s for the United States, and he showed you all those things that we think are going to translate. Well, I think, it's just me, that are going to translate at the next level. Very good defender, very good hands, able to guard on the perimeter. He was a defensive monster. He can carry that momentum into the season, mix it in and knock down some jumpers. I know he struggled with the under-19. He did shoot the ball at a decent clip on the AAU Adidas circuit. He shot 34% on jumpers and 35% on dribble jumpers. I think Koa Peat just has the opportunity to not necessarily be Draymond Green, because everybody wants the Draymond Green type of power forward. And maybe he's a store brand version of Colin Murray Boyles, who went in the top 10 this past draft. He may not be the level of rebounder, but I do think he will offer some playmaking. For the Compton Magic, Koa Peat did handle the ball a lot. He just has to prove that he can continue to knock down shots. Also, does he have enough juice in the short roll? I think he's a good athlete, but he's going to be more than likely an at the rim, below the rim finisher. So what does it look like for him finishing? What does it look like for him in a scaled down role where he's just not handling the ball as much as he did at the high school level? But I am buying him defensively. If he commits to that end, he could find himself being a lottery pick. Coming in at number 12 is Auburn's Elyjah Freeman. Now, if you're not following me on Twitter, if you're not subscribed to the Substack, I wrote an article about why I think Elyjah Freeman is a first-round pick and why I think he could be the next Cedric Coward, Jalen Wells. Elyjah Freeman, somehow, some way, whatever, it doesn't matter. How he got to where he is now, which is Auburn, sometimes, I guess it's a life lesson. The path is just the path, and you got to go on it. So, Elyjah Freeman, 6'8", small forward, maybe power forward, more so small forward. But if you've never seen him before, athlete, very good cutter, shooting ability. The volume of threes wasn't the highest. He shot over 40% from three, but it was on low volume. But he is an athlete, play finisher, very good cutter. I think he'll be able to screen and make plays in the short roll. Ultra productive at the D2 level. Now he is making a huge jump from playing at Lincoln Memorial in Tennessee to the SEC. So that is going to be an adjustment. I do think that the athleticism will check out. It's just a matter of him getting used to the physicality that is the SEC. But he's only 19 years old. Like I said, he dominated D2. He's just going to be somebody who's going to be like a Swiss Army knife as far as being able to do a little bit of everything. I'm very high on him. He's in a good situation even with the coaching change. I think Tahad Pettiford is going to have to prove that he is a playmaker as well as a scorer, and Elyjah Freeman is going to be somebody who's going to be able to play off of Tahad Pettiford. So I have Elyjah Freeman at number 12. I'm extremely high on him. I wasn't the first person. I'm not going to sit here and say that I found him in the trenches. Shout out to everybody who's been driving the Elyjah Freeman train for some time. I don't know where I'm seated on this train, but I'm definitely on the train. I think he's a lottery-level talent. He's going to have to make some adjustments. Volume is going to have to be tested as far as his three-point shooting ability. But he did shoot 80% from the foul line on over 6 attempts per game at the D2 level. So I think he's going to be able to shoot. Find my article on Substack. Coming in at 13 on my preseason big board for the 2026 NBA draft is Karim Lopez, the Mexican forward playing in the NBL. I think Karim Lopez is a hybrid 3-4. He can handle the ball some, but his best, I guess you could say his best feature would be his ability to, if the shooting does check out, he's shooting the ball extremely well, but it's early in the season. But he plays hard. He does have some skills. He's going to have to continue to knock down shots and continue to hit the glass. He's not necessarily the best athlete, but I do think he does make the most of his athleticism. He takes long strides to get to the basket. Defensively, I do think he does have to improve, but at 6'9", you just can't be a cone. I think he's an at-the-rim finisher, and he does show some flashes of being able to handle the ball and make plays. At number 14 and rounding out my lottery is Patrick Ngongba from Duke. Now, Patrick Ngongba didn't have a consistent role at Duke last year. He found himself behind Karim Lopez, but I do think he is poised for a breakout season. He's a center. I think he can pass. I think he showed in the limited minutes that he was a very good playmaker, especially in 5-out spacing. He's going to be good in the short roll. He's good on the block, very good footwork. The jump shot, I think he will be able to stretch the floor at some point, maybe not now at Duke, but he shot very well from the free throw line, which is always a good indicator of a player's touch. Feet do move pretty well, but ultimately, I guess his biggest issue, and maybe why I don't have him a little higher, I want to see him protect the rim better. Now, maybe with the sample size that he did show at Duke, again, he was sometimes second or even third string center, but I feel like he's going to have every opportunity to showcase his ability, even playing alongside Cameron Boozer. But I want to see him protect the rim. He reminds me of some of the same qualities that we saw with Darryn Peterson, and Darryn Peterson found himself in a similar position in the 2025 draft. So I'm very high on Patrick Ngongba. I think he's going to end up being a riser. He does all the things that you want your post-up 5 to do in the modern NBA, which is not only post-up, be able to make plays and knock down jump shots. Well, that concludes today's podcast. I gave you a glimpse into my thinking for the 2026 NBA draft as far as lottery picks go. Please stay tuned, subscribe, like, comment. I'm going to be dropping podcasts on a weekly basis, writing articles on the Substack. Hey, Rafa isn't here. This may as well be like a Mitchell and Ness throwback, but we got merchandise, so please check me out, the NBA Draft Junkies. I am James, and that concludes today's show. I am out.